Coming up on this edition of Second Alarm, we'll learn about the department's Acquired Structure Training Program and how it gives our firefighters the opportunity to train in real-world situations. We'll also learn about the personal protective gear our firefighters wear and how it keeps them safe. Plus, we'll have safety tips on how to protect your home from wildfires this summer. Those stories and much more coming up on this edition of Second Alarm. Welcome to this edition of Second Alarm. I'm Assistant Chief Brian Schaefer. This May, Spokane Fire Department crews had the opportunity to do realistic training in the old National Furniture Store on Division Street before it was scheduled for demolition. Training Captain Kelly Smith has more on acquired structure training and why it's very beneficial for our crews.
Well, today what we have is we have an acquired structure. And what that is, we had a business owner who's moving out. He's going to tear his building down and move something else in, and contacted the fire department, said, would you like to come in and use this building for training? Which is invaluable to us because we don't often get these opportunities.
So what I'm going to do now, since I already dropped that to the rafter, I'm going to make this cut all the way out to that rafter. Okay?
Our training center, it's a beautiful facility, but it's a concrete building, so we can't simulate a lot of the things that go on in this real life type of structure. So anytime we get a chance to work on them, like I say, it's invaluable training. The building itself is actually 3 different structures combined into one. So it's almost like a Christmas for us. So we get to go up and cut this roof in this one style, go over here, cut it open a different way and see something totally different that we're going to see from this structure over here. And to be able to talk about that in one building when we have everybody together, and how fire is going to move from one building to the next and how it travels and what the different truss systems are like and how that reacts under fire, how long we have to work in these truss systems.
There it is, all wood, isn't it?
Beautiful trusses.
Yeah.
Holy moly. What does suspended ceilings mean to us? Those types of things, we can't put that together in a classroom the way we can out here. And so today we have crews from the city, from ladder, all our ladder companies are coming through. We're doing some work on the roof, cutting it open, getting some real life saw work and skills done up there. We're also going to have a regional recruit academy here, so we have a bunch of 27 recruits also learning about the structure. This is stuff we can't teach in the classroom, so it's invaluable. And we so appreciate getting these structures from the public whenever we can to work in them. And there are some things we have to do, and depending on what kind of training we want to use it for. In the city of Spokane, we're not allowed to burn at this point, but we are able to use it for other things, such as breaching walls, opening up roofs and ceilings, using it for just search and rescue drills, laddering, pulling hoses, and those kinds of scenarios, kind of what we call them our MCOs, multi-company operations, so that we can make it like a real fire. So we can assign people, you pull the hose, you go to the roof, you do the search and rescue, and to be able to do that in one structure that's a real life structure that kind of makes sense is invaluable. So what you want to do is call and let us know, and we'll start the process. First of all, we will make sure you are the rightful owner because we don't want to tear down somebody else's building. We have to get all our insurance papers in order, which we do, and just have you fill out sign a form that says that we have the right of entry permit to come in and do certain specific training in that building. And you can specify what you do or don't want done. Obviously, the more destructive we can be, the happier we're going to be about it. If we can break stuff, that makes us happy.
Firefighting is a risky activity that has great potential for injury. The personal protective equipment that firefighters wear help protect themselves in these hostile environments. Battalion Chief Dave Hayworth has more on the department's PPE program.
PPE is a system of clothing, hoods, helmets, gloves that firefighters use to protect them from dangerous environments, whether it's heat, whether it's toxic gases, smoke, things like that. In today's fires, with the modern materials, the plastics, the chemicals, a lot of things that used to be built out of wood are now built out of petrochemicals, things like that. which give off a lot of toxic gases. There are several thousand different chemicals released in your average house fire. All the firefighters are exposed to that, and it all collects on their gear, and it's all carcinogens. So consequently, there's a much higher risk for the fire service of cancer. On this job, we've lost several people to cancer, and we've had a lot of members contract cancer. The best thing you can do to protect yourself from it is to launder your gear as soon as possible after the fire. Get it off your body, get it in the extractor, get it in the wash machine, take a shower, get all the chemicals off your skin, and just be very conscientious that even though you can't see the chemicals, that they're there. The smoke is probably the least harmful of the gases in the fire. What's very harmful are the ones that you can't see: cyanide, arsenic, things like that. Well, each set costs several $1,000s, and we have roughly 300 members that we're outfitting with 2 sets. There's upkeep on them. Anytime they get a small hole in them, just wear and tear, we have to repair them. Sometimes we have to send them out to be repaired. And then we have the helmets, the gloves, the boots, everything that goes with it, which requires an annual upkeep.
Abrasions on the left pocket, bottom of the pocket, not a fail.
And also everything ages out after 10 years. The manufacturers say after 10 years they can't guarantee that it'll protect you. So every 10 years we have to swap it out. The exposure rate is much higher if you don't clean your gear immediately after a fire. So we bought extractors for all the stations. That's basically a large washing machine that's used to wash industrial type clothing. And that gets rid of all the contaminants right after exposure. It's really a system made up of several different layers and materials, and they all have to work together to provide the protection from the heat mainly, and also from the chemicals and the toxic gases.
The Spokane Fire Department recently partnered with Lewis and Clark and North Central High Schools to raise awareness of the importance of safe driving and demonstrating the dangers of drinking and driving. Battalion Chief Heiser has much more about the mock crash.
Today was a mock crash set up for Lewis and Clark High School. It was put on by the students. They've spent countless hours organizing it and getting in contact with all the people that was needed, the streets department, the police department, the fire department. I was able to coordinate the fire department's end of it, making sure we had resources here to show the students what an actual scene looks like. This is all in prevention. If we can prevent one car wreck, then it doesn't matter how many hours we spent doing this, it's all worthwhile. I would much rather practice and do this time and time again as to have to do this scene once in real life. The basic scenario here was a drunk driving incident with 4 kids in each vehicle. In this one, we had 2 that were needing transport, 2 that were dead on scene. We had 4 that were walking wounded. One of the walking wounded was the driver who was impaired. He was taken away by the Spokane Police Department while the fire department was treating the other victims. Hennessy Funeral Home provided a hearse that was able to take away the 2 that were declared deceased on scene. The goal is to make it as real where these kids take it to heart. They see car wrecks in the news, on social media and everything else, but when they're looking at their classmates, people they see every day, it's tough to disassociate and ignore that. So in this scenario, it was a drunk driver scenario, but the same scenario could play out with texting and driving, inattentive driving. The whole emphasis here is just be a safe driver. It prevents one wreck. If one of these kids takes it to heart and doesn't do an unsafe act that they would have otherwise, it makes all the hours put into this worthwhile.
Yeah. Spring is the perfect time for yard cleanup, and it's time to ready your house for fire season. Recently retired Training Captain Doug Dotson has a few tips to make your house and your yard Firewise.
Well, as we begin our spring cleanup after a rough winter, as the trees have come down, it's a perfect time to think about next fall and fire season. As the summer comes along, it dries out, and the things that we do now will make a huge difference in how well we're able to cope with a dry summer and hopefully not as bad a season as we had last year. As we start around the house, we want to look and see, is our 30-foot defendable zone open, cleared up, and cleaned up of materials. So we got a good space where the crews can get in and work, and it keeps that heat, radiant heat, away from the building a good distance. So it's green. Keep it green all summer long. I know sometimes it's hard with water shortage, but that 30-foot green space is really nice to have, that extra buffer to protect your home. Look around your gutters and the valleys that are on your roof, behind dormers, anywhere where pine needles can collect. Make sure that they have been cleaned out so you don't have a tinder box. Check underneath your decks. If you've got a lot of extra material underneath your deck, that's a real solid catch basin for sparks and embers as they fly in. So that's something you have to think about, is flames on the ground coming up and embers, flames, and heat coming through the air. We all like to have flowers next to our home. Unfortunately, oftentimes the same stuff that makes our flowers go good, the organic material, also catches the siding of our home on fire. In this case, the siding is made of hardy plank, which is pretty much non-combustible, but we still want to keep our flower beds away so that a good shot, you can see the foundation, you can see the bottom of the sill, and there's nothing there that's going to carry a fire up underneath the edges. Okay, here we've got a nice set of flowers that are along the edge of the house. And again, right up to the concrete, it's clear and open so that you can see there's nothing that's going to light and carry the fire up underneath. They've kept the plants away from the footing and the foundation, so it's a very easily controlled and contained environment. And so even though that they might have a little bark here, it'd be very easy to scrape that bark away from the edge to protect this home very quickly. We have a good defensible space around here. The trees are pushed back from the house, and so that gives a chance for the flames to be slowed down or back in that area. They're a little thicker. You might want about 20 feet in between your trees, but these are well watered, and keeping them green is important, because if you can keep the tree green and healthy, it's harder for the fire to get started in it. Quite often we can vary the type of material that we plant. The plants themselves, we can find more fire-resistant plants or plants that aren't going to carry fire as easily. You can see here they've got some trees that are just a little bit different. They're not quite as oily as the ponderosa pines, and they'll provide the shade, and they don't have the limbs, so they've limbed the trees up. It's a lot easier there to see. We're bringing the lower height in. It's doing a better job. Looking at the roof, we want to look if there's any flat areas where the chimney comes across there, see if there's any pine needles that are gathering up there or in the valley behind it. Want to make sure that if you've got windows, have a screen on them so that it catches the embers. You know, you want to be able to close those windows on the inside should there be a wildfire coming your way. Keep the embers from going in. Underneath the eaves of the home, if you can put mesh or screen to keep any embers from coming up into the vents along the soffits, that's extremely important, and around the porch. So those are covered and blanked over so that no sparks or embers can get in. Some of these are just very basic steps that you can take now in the spring and while you're getting ready and doing your planning to prevent a lot of problems later on in the year. In a few moments now, to clean things up, to make it fire safe, will be very comforting and later on in the year when we do have our wildland season.
That's all for this edition of Second Alarm. If you have any comments or questions or concerns, you can contact us at fire@SpokaneFire.org or call us at 509-625-7000. Thanks again for watching, and stay safe.